Hi, I'm Reverend Kim Kaiser, one of your ministers here at the center. And today's talk is based on the affirmation that we have this month. We see a world in which kinship with all life prospers, where we respect and honor the interconnectedness of all life. What a wonderful feeling it is to begin to recognize that you are indeed connected to, at every moment, all that lives. The philosopher and poet Ralph Waldo Emerson speaks of what happens when we give our deep respect and attention to this world. He said, "Nature is loved by what is best in us." We are indeed in a place where we live in beauty. This is one of the most beautiful places in the world, I'll just say it. And the natural world brings out the best in us and reveals its best to us in this place. Sometimes it's more obvious than others, and there was one time I want to talk with you about a place that I think many people in this room may know, but it's a time when I was sitting with my family, Reverend Joyce, my daughter Ariana, on the bay called Kealakekua on the main island of Hawaii. It's a beautiful place. And it was in the early morning, the sunlight was streaming down, the waves were lapping on the rock shore, and we were sitting at the edge of the water with our guide who was showing us that in order to get into the water, we had to time our entry and wait for the waves to be high enough for us to be able to slide into the water. At that point, we began swimming, and we swam for more than a mile out into the middle of this bay. We had flotation devices, but still, that's a lot of swimming. And there we were, this open bay, open to the ocean, and then suddenly, leaping beings appeared all around us. And there was a pod of dolphins that we had swum out to meet. There were 50 or more of them. And they come in regularly to rest in that bay. We were in their world, and we were welcomed. It was almost as if we were part of a family. Mothers and children swam around and below us. There were no fear, no one running away from us. We were in another species' home in their world, at ease and at peace. The dolphins were indeed doing what Emerson spoke of. They were bringing out the best in me. I was at home and at ease. Last Friday, April 22nd, was Earth Day and a celebration of our planet and its beauty, its diversity. The song Chris just sang speaks of a vision of the earth in which every individual being, flower, mountain, or tree, speaks to us of all beings on the planet. Through each individual, we hear the great voice of life living on earth. Now, some of you may have heard of a scientific hypothesis called the Gaia hypothesis. It's a theory that says something similar to what we say here at the Center for Spiritual Living. We say, instead of looking at reality as a bunch of separate, collected things, individuals, objects, maybe we ask ourselves, what would you see if you looked at everything as aspects of one thing, not a random collection? We speak of reality here, and we don't use the word God. We don't need to. So this means the same thing to us. But we speak of the ultimate thing itself, what really is, and we say of it that it's one thing. We say it as a living being, intelligent and responsive in every way. In the same way, the Gaia hypothesis is a scientific theory that asks, what would we see if we looked at the earth in this way, as being actually one being, with everything that exists on it and within it functioning as parts of that being? Now, recent science continues to research this, and it is finding much that is seeable only in this way. But this idea has been around for quite a while. And the idea was described by the first psychologist, a man that many people don't know, Gustav Fechner, in the mid-1800s. And it's quoted in our book of the month, Unknown Earth, by Jacob Needleman. Describing what kind of a being a planet would be, he wrote, "A planet is a different class of being than either man or animal. Not only larger than a whale or an elephant, but a being whose enormous size requires an altogether different form of life. For example, she doesn't require her own eyes or ears, for she has millions of eyes of all her animals to guide their movements on her surface, and all their noses to smell the flowers that grow. For," he writes, "as we see ourselves as part of the earth, so our organs are her organs. She is eye and ear over her whole extent." In this way of looking, we are all eyes and ears of this one being we call Earth. And she knows us and all that we know, and she knows it simultaneously all at once. No one is excluded from her being. And as the opening song said, each being speaks to us of all beings. Emerson said the same thing about the universe. He said, "The universe is represented in every one of its particles. Everything in nature contains all the powers of nature. Everything is made of one hidden stuff." Another way of saying that is the entire universe speaks to us through each of us. This close relationship between beings, this connection between animate and inanimate beings, led a famous humanitarian named Albert Schweitzer to propose this understanding of how to live your life. He called it reverence for life, and he so believed in this that he gave up a prosperous career as musician and theologian in France, became an MD, went off to Africa to work with people, and it was based on this theory. He called it reverence for life, or more properly, awe of the mystery of life. And it's based on a fact that he says is the fundamental fact of human awareness. When we look, we see that I am life that wills to live in the midst of life that also wills to live. We're surrounded by that same intention, that same desire to live. And he wrote, when we see this, we feel compelled to approach all life with the same reverence we have for our own. For Schweitzer, this meant that I am to treat all life with deep respect, because the same energy that moves in me is what is moving in all life. I am to treat all life with the same deep respect that I have for my own life, because it is my life, appearing there in you, appearing in everything, appearing in everyone. Many pet owners know about this because they look in their pet's eyes and they see someone that recognizes them, that loves them. They see that looking back at them in this dog or cat or dolphin is someone moved by the same fundamental desires, the desire to live and live fully, to love and be loved. This is recognizing the fundamental energy and movement that is life itself, expressing itself through desire, intention. And you see that it is fundamentally the same energy as yours. You are, in fact, seeing yourself there. And you are doing what that one being does, recognizing itself in every part of itself. Ernest Holmes, the founder of the teaching that we practice here at Center for Spiritual Living, said, "Your recognition of life is God itself within you, recognizing itself in everything you do. Your recognition of life is God's recognition of life. It's life acknowledging, knowing, and feeling and loving itself just in the recognition. Wherever we recognize life, we're seeing more of ourselves. As we swam in the midst of the dolphins, every once in a while you'd hear a click. And what was happening was the dolphins were checking us out or clicking us out by sending sound waves at us. You know, dolphins don't operate by vision. The ocean, the water might not be clear. They send out sound waves like sonar does. And they receive back a complete experience of your body. They experience your whole body in that returning sound wave, inside and out, all at once. They don't look at you. They feel you. They touch you with sound and feel your body's response. Many people report that they can tell if someone is sick or someone's pregnant because they will swim over and surround that person. And many report that they have been healed by the frequencies that the dolphins send in those clicks. It's as if they feel your whole being. They see what's lacking or different and are sending their energy to give you what you need and can use. A plant biologist has also reported that trees, years after you first walk by them, continue to respond to you every time you appear, even in the absence of many years. There's a spike in their energy that's recordable. It's as if they're remembering you every time you walk by. I often think about this as I'm hiking along trails I've been on before, that I'm known and recognized there, that people, trees, are responding, living beings are responding to me. And this is happening to us all the time. And not only plants and animals, but mountains do the same thing. Once, while on a hike on Mount Shasta, far above the tree line, I clearly heard the thought, I am you, here. It felt like the source, was telling me that when it is seen where Mount Shasta is, it looks like Mount Shasta. When it is seen where I am, it looks like me. Ernest Holmes spoke of this directly when he said, these mountains here do not reflect the glory of God. They are the glory of God. The mountain is God's idea of itself that way. We are all ideas of God. And God knows itself in an infinite number of ways. That one reality does. And we are that idea of itself right where you are. Ernest Holmes goes on to say, that is why we can commune with nature in her visible form. And that is why a tree can speak to us, which it most certainly can if we would develop the ability to listen. We recognize each other because we are made of the same substance and share the same life. Sometimes we say in this tradition that each of us is a drop in the ocean. But Ernest Holmes also said, not only is the drop in the ocean, all of the ocean is in the drop. And all of God is in each individual. And all of that one is seeking to be known and be known by you. The Islamic mystical poet Rumi wrote a poem entitled, Listen, O Drop. And he writes, have you ever seen the ocean wooing the drop, wooing the drop? We are being wooed by the one. It wants us to know it. It wants us to know it in all its forms, and it wants us to know that it is us everywhere. There's something seeking to make itself known to you. makes itself known to you through everything that is, and it is everything. It is your source. It is your home. It is in and as everything you meet. Remember those puzzles you used to do as a child, where you would painstakingly, slowly connect dot after dot until suddenly a picture appears? Perhaps a dog or a doll, a kitten or a kite. An image that you would never see if you looked only at the dots. But once you've connected them, you're able to see how the image was there all the time. Reverend Edward has often referred to spiritual practice as dissolving the illusion of separateness. He says that our teaching tells us that what looks like a collection of separated, unrelated things, dots, or people, when you no longer look at them as separate, something emerges that was always there, but you never noticed or felt it so clearly before. When, through our awareness, we connect what we see with the common source from which it comes, the common source from which we share, we see much more than before. One day I was walking in Yosemite Park. Again, it was in the early morning. I was crossing a hanging bridge, looking over the side of the stream bed about 20 feet below. And as I got to the middle of the bridge, I looked up and found an equally surprised mountain lion walking toward me and just noticing me at the same time. We stood there and looked at each other in a moment that was outside of time, outside of species. It was just two eyes looking at two eyes with no thought of threat or fear. It was a timeless moment as we took each other in from two different worlds, two different universes. We were both curious about the other, and we looked deeply into each other's eyes. Now, I don't know that the mountain lion actually felt this, but it certainly felt that way to me. It felt like we recognized something we knew in each other, that our experiences and responses to life were understandable and made some deep sense. That if I lived in her world and she in mine, I'd be like her and she'd be like me. Within a second or two, the mountain lion leapt in the air, turned 180 degrees in that one leap, and ran off in the other direction. Only afterward did I think about danger or feel fear. My then 11-year-old daughter wrote a poem about it and gave it to me beneath a beautiful picture of a mountain lion. And she wrote, "They were both terrified of each other, yet fascinated by the other's majestic appeal. He found a moment of peace and balance with this majestic, giant animal." When I remember that encounter, I remember that moment of recognition, that moment of peace. In that moment of surprise, our skins fell away, and we were two aspects of the one, looking at each other, looking beyond separation, looking with curiosity, with appreciation, with admiration. Looking in this way can begin to show you that everything and everyone is connected in a very real way. You can begin to connect the dots when you look in this way. In a book which shares the same title as this talk, Kinship with All Life, the author speaks of being in right relation to all beings and all things. He wrote, "People of certain ancient times appear to have been particularly skilled in the delicate science of being in right relations with everything, including animals. Life to these ancients was an all-inclusive kinship from which nothing could be excluded. They refuse to make any separating barriers between mineral and vegetable, between vegetable and man, or between man and the great primal cause which animates and governs all things. Every living being was seen as a partner in a universal enterprise. Each had an individual contribution to make to the general good, which it and it alone could supply. Everything lived for everything else at all times and under all circumstances. To live as the ancients did, the author suggests that we use a universal language spoken by all species and by all things, a language not of words, but of attitudes. It's a way of feeling each other, which senses the movement of that same source, the movement of that same life, the movement of that same desire, that same intention. And it leads to a deep appreciation of all life. The author of the book, Unknown Earth, Jacob Needleman, says, there are aspects of reality that depend on the quality of your attention in order to be seen. And I've come to feel that what he's talking about is that it requires more than just attention to see reality. It requires attunement. And he suggests how we can attune to each other. He says, the attitudes or qualities of attention that compose this universal language are genuine interest, respect, appreciation, admiration, affection, gentleness, courtesy, and, as he puts it, just plain, simple, good manners. When you look with these attitudes at everything, you begin to see the qualities of life appearing everywhere, in the animate, the inanimate. It is as you awaken to it, you begin to see awakening all around you. These are good rules for living with anyone, and they are the doorway to feeling your kinship with all life. If you'll join me in prayer. Right now, that which is listening, that which is hearing, that which is feeling, that which is knowing in each person here is that same one. The one that is the source of all being, the one that is the source of life, the one that is the only knower, the only actor, and it is appearing as each one in this room. Wherever it is, all of it is. All of the qualities of that one are present here, right now, in each one who is hearing. And I speak this word in this awareness, and I accept that each person here now knows in an increased way, ever increasing, the truth of their connection to all being. The truth that as they look at their world, they no longer are in some strange place. But when you look beneath the surface, you find the qualities of life, of love, of peace appearing everywhere. This is now known and cannot be forgotten. It appears in every moment of encounter without and within. I give thanks for this awareness. I give thanks for knowing this is so. And I simply release this word knowing that it is done by the one who is hearing it. And let it be. And so it is.